You're running, not jogging for exercise with your wireless earbuds and your moisture-wicking socks. Running because something with teeth is behind you and the gap is closing fast. You're barefoot on uneven ground, it's dark, and there are rocks everywhere. Then your foot catches one. You go down hard. You hear the sound before you feel the pain, a wet, dense crack that you feel in your back teeth. You look down. Your lower leg is pointing in a direction that lower legs are not supposed to point. In 2025, this is a bad afternoon. An ambulance arrives, a hospital takes you in, an x-ray shows exactly what broke. A surgeon sets the bone. 6 weeks in a cast, some physical therapy. Annoying, expensive, inconvenient, but fine. Now put that exact same broken leg in 30,000 BC. Delete the ambulance, delete the hospital, delete the x-ray and the surgeon. Just you, the ground, that sound still echoing in your skull, and a group of people staring at you trying to decide what this means for everyone's survival. A broken bone in the ancient world wasn't just a medical problem. It was a social crisis, a liability. You can't run with a broken leg. You can't hunt. You can't carry. You can't contribute. In a world where every single person's output was the difference between the group eating and not eating, being suddenly useless was not a neutral event. It was a question that everyone in your tribe was asking at exactly the same moment you were lying on the ground trying not to scream. Spoiler, some of them responded better than you'd expect. Some responded exactly as badly as you'd fear. Here is the first thing that should genuinely surprise you. Bone is one of the most aggressively self-repairing materials in the known universe. The human skeleton did not survive 300,000 years of running, falling, fighting, and hunting by being fragile. Within hours of a fracture, the body floods the injury site with blood. A clot forms. The emergency response begins immediately. Specialized cells called osteoblasts begin laying down new bone tissue around the break like a biological construction crew. Within days, a soft callus forms, a bridge of fibrous tissue spanning the gap. Within weeks, it hardens into solid bone. Within months, the bone remodels itself until the fracture site is often stronger than the original bone before the break. Archaeologists have found ancient human remains with healed fractures dating back hundreds of thousands of years. A Neanderthal skeleton in Shanidar Cave in Iraq showed a healed arm fracture, a healed leg injury, and multiple other survived traumas. This person was kept alive by others, fed, sheltered, and protected, while completely unable to contribute to group survival. The evidence of ancient care is written directly into ancient bone. But bone heals well only under roughly correct conditions: immobilization, alignment, and the absence of catastrophic infection. Without those three things, bone heals badly, heals wrong, or doesn't heal at all. And in 30,000 BC, all three were brutally difficult to achieve. The concept of immobilizing a broken bone is so intuitive, it appears independently in virtually every human culture on Earth. You don't need a medical degree to understand that a bone that keeps moving doesn't heal. You need to watch it happen once. Prehistoric peoples used straight branches, bark, bundled reeds, and strips of animal hide hardened with clay or fat. Archaeological evidence of splinting goes back at least 50,000 years. Ancient Egyptian mummies have been found with sophisticated splints, made from bark and linen bandages wrapped in precise overlapping layers. The principle was identical to a modern cast. The execution was considerably less precise. The real problem wasn't immobilization, it was alignment. Setting a broken bone is extraordinarily painful, even with modern anesthesia. Without it, the healer had to grip the limb on both sides of the fracture and apply steady traction, while the patient experienced what can only be described as extraordinary suffering. Ancient healers learned to do this by feel, by observation, by accumulated knowledge passed down through generations. Some of them were genuinely skilled. Skeletons with well-healed, correctly aligned fractures that clearly received expert intervention. Others were not skilled. Ancient remains showing malunion, fractures healed in completely wrong alignment, leaving the person with a permanently shortened limb, a visible deformity, or a bone angled in the wrong direction for the rest of their life. Walk through any significant archaeological collection and you'll find them. People who survived but carried the evidence of inadequate treatment in their skeleton forever. For fractures of the femur, the thigh bone, the largest bone in the body, simple splinting was not enough. The massive muscles surrounding the femur contract violently after a fracture, pulling the bone fragments past each other. Some ancient cultures developed clever workarounds, binding the injured leg to the healthy one, suspending the limb from above. A femur fracture in the ancient world was, in most cases, a death sentence. Not immediately, but within weeks. From blood loss, from infection, from the catastrophic effects of leaving that much muscle damage untreated. Willow bark, the original source of aspirin's active compound, was used for pain management across Europe, Asia, and North America independently. Turmeric, which contains genuine anti-inflammatory compounds, was used in Ayurvedic medicine for fracture treatment. Comfrey, known traditionally as knit bone, contains a compound that genuinely accelerates cell proliferation at fracture sites. These were not superstitious remedies. They were empirically developed over thousands of years of careful observation. The healers didn't know why they worked, but they knew that they did. The bone itself was rarely what killed people. The infection was. An open fracture, where the broken bone pierces through the skin, is a medical emergency even today. In a modern hospital, it triggers immediate surgery, irrigation, intravenous antibiotics, and round-the-clock monitoring. In the ancient world, an open fracture was a question of timing, not whether infection would occur. When? Local infection, osteomyelitis, shows up in ancient remains with horrifying frequency, characteristic pitting and erosion where bacteria killed the bone outright. Archaeologists regularly find limbs showing evidence of chronic infections that persisted for years, slowly consuming the bone while the person somehow remained alive. The pain would have been constant and relentless. These people continued living, working, being part of their communities, with infections eating their bones from the inside. Systemic infection, sepsis, was the fast death, bacteria entering the bloodstream and spreading throughout the body, triggering an overwhelming immune response that shut down organ after organ within days. No antibiotics, no IV fluids, nothing to stop it. You went from a broken leg to a fever to unconsciousness to death in less than a week. Nobody around you had any meaningful way to intervene. The tribe watched. That was all they could do. The only tool ancient healers had against spreading infection was removal, amputation. Skeletal evidence of deliberate amputation goes back at least 31,000 years. A case discovered in Borneo showed clean, precise cuts through the bone consistent with surgical removal. And crucially, bone remodeling showing this person survived for years afterward. Someone knew what they were doing. Someone cared enough to try. Without anesthesia, without sterile technique, without the ability to reliably control hemorrhage, you traded a certain death from spreading infection for a highly probable death from surgical shock. Some people made it anyway, and that fact alone should stop you in your tracks. Yes, people died from fractures that would be trivially managed today. Yes, people live with deformities and chronic infections that modern medicine would eliminate in an afternoon. But people also survived injuries that should have killed them, supported by communities that chose to carry the weight of a member who couldn't contribute. The Shanidar Neanderthal, the Borneo amputee, skeleton after skeleton showing healed trauma, showing care. The decision to keep someone alive even when it cost the group real resources was not a modern invention. It is as old as we are. The cast on your arm is 6 weeks of inconvenience. The X-ray is 10 seconds of mild anxiety. The surgeon who sets your bone has years of training, precision instruments, and the entire accumulated knowledge of human medicine behind every decision. Your ancient ancestor had a straight stick, some willow bark, and someone who loved them enough to hold their screaming body still while they tried to push the pieces back together by feel in the dark. Both of them were trying to do the same thing. Only one of them had any real chance of getting it right.